Israel Keyes, the methodical serial killer. In the annals of true crime, few names evoke as much chilling fascination as Israel Keyes. A calculated predator who stalked the shadows of America for over a decade, Keyes embodied the worst fears of a nation, a meticulous killer who could strike anywhere, at any time, leaving no trace behind. This is the story of a man who turned murder into a macabre art form, a tale that will make you question the safety of even the most idyllic corners of our country. The early years. Born on January 7, 1978, in Richmond, Utah, Israel Keyes seemed destined for an unremarkable life. Raised in a strict Mormon household, he was one of 10 children in a family that later abandoned their faith for a more extreme Christian ideology. The Keyes family eventually moved to rural Washington state, where young Israel grew up in relative isolation, surrounded by the vast wilderness that would later become his hunting ground. As a teenager, Keyes began to show signs of the darkness that lurked within. He was known to torture animals and harbored a growing fascination with death and violence. Despite these red flags, Keyes managed to blend into society, joining the U.S. Army in 1998 and serving for 3 years. It was during this time that he honed the skills that would make him such a formidable predator: survival techniques, weapons proficiency, and the ability to operate undetected in unfamiliar territories. The birth of a monster. Upon leaving the military in 2001, Keyes returned to Washington state, where he began his descent into the abyss of serial murder. Unlike many killers who operate within a specific geographic area or target a particular type of victim, Keyes adopted a strategy that would baffle law enforcement for years to come. He became what criminologists refer to as a travel serial killer, a rare breed of predator who commits murders across vast distances, making detection nearly impossible. Keyes' method was as brilliant as it was terrifying. He would fly to a random location, rent a car, and drive hundreds of miles to commit his crimes. He buried kill kits, caches of weapons, tools, and money, in various locations across the country, sometimes years before he would use them. This meticulous planning allowed him to avoid carrying suspicious items through airport security and reduced the risk of being caught with incriminating evidence. The victims. The true extent of Keyes' crimes may never be known. He confessed to at least 8 murders but hinted at many more. His known victims spanned from Alaska to Vermont, each one chosen seemingly at random. This randomness was perhaps the most chilling aspect of Keyes' modus operandi. No one was safe. One of his earliest confirmed victims was Samantha Koenig, an 18-year-old barista from Anchorage, Alaska. On February 1st, 2012, Keyes abducted Koenig from the coffee stand where she worked. He sexually assaulted her, strangled her to death, and then kept her body in a shed for 2 weeks. In a grotesque display of his cunning, Keyes used makeup to make it appear as if Koenig was still alive in ransom photos sent to her family. Another confirmed victim was Bill and Lorraine Currier, a couple from Essex, Vermont. In June 2011, Keyes broke into their home, abducted them, and drove them to an abandoned farmhouse. There, he shot Bill and sexually assaulted Lorraine before strangling her. He later dismembered their bodies and disposed of them in an unknown location. These are just 2 examples of the lives Keyes destroyed. Each murder was meticulously planned, with Keyes sometimes spending years preparing for a single kill. He reveled in the power he held over his victims, often keeping them alive for hours or even days before finally ending their lives. The hunt. For years, Keyes operated with impunity. His careful planning and random selection of victims made it nearly impossible for law enforcement to connect the dots. He left no DNA evidence, no witnesses, and no pattern that could be discerned. In many cases, his victims were simply reported as missing persons, their fates unknown to their grieving families. It wasn't until the abduction of Samantha Koenig that Keyes finally made a crucial mistake. In the weeks following her disappearance, he used her debit card to withdraw money from ATMs across several states. This electronic trail gave investigators their first solid lead, and on March 13, 2012, Israel Keyes was arrested in Lufkin, Texas. The interrogations. What followed Keyes' arrest was a series of chilling interrogations that would reveal the true extent of his crimes. Over the course of several months, Keyes toyed with investigators, doling out tidbits of information about his murders while withholding crucial details. He seemed to enjoy the cat-and-mouse game, relishing the power he still held even in custody. During these interviews, Keyes revealed his philosophy of murder. He spoke of how he would let the universe decide who his victims would be, sometimes stalking a location for days before finding the right target. He described the thrill of hunting humans, comparing it to the rush of gambling or skydiving. Perhaps most disturbing was Keyes' apparent lack of remorse. He spoke of his crimes with a detached calmness, as if recounting a mundane day at work. When asked about the families of his victims, Keyes showed no empathy, stating that he simply didn't care about the pain he had caused. The aftermath. On December 2, 2012, before the full extent of his crimes could be uncovered, Israel Keyes was found dead in his jail cell. He had committed suicide using a razor blade and bedsheet, leaving behind a rambling and blood-soaked note that offered no further insights into his crimes. Keyes' death left countless questions unanswered. How many people had he really killed? Where were the bodies of his unidentified victims? And perhaps most importantly, how had he managed to evade detection for so long? The legacy of fear. The case of Israel Keyes serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities in our society. His ability to move undetected across the country, committing heinous crimes with no apparent connection, exposed the limitations of traditional law enforcement methods. In the years since Keyes' death, investigators have continued to piece together his movements, hoping to bring closure to the families of his unidentified victims. The FBI has released timeline maps of Keyes' travels, urging the public to come forward with any information that might help solve cold cases, potentially linked to the killer. The Keyes case has also led to changes in how law enforcement agencies share information across jurisdictions. The realization that a killer could operate on such a vast geographic scale has prompted better cooperation and data sharing between different states and agencies. The psychology of a killer. Understanding the mind of Israel Keyes is a daunting task. Psychologists and criminologists have pored over his interrogation tapes, trying to decipher what drove this man to commit such horrific acts. Some experts point to Keyes' isolated upbringing and exposure to extreme religious ideologies as potential factors in his development. Others argue that he displays classic signs of antisocial personality disorder, characterized by a lack of empathy and disregard for social norms. What's clear is that Keyes was not your typical serial killer. His level of planning and self-control set him apart from more impulsive predators. He was able to compartmentalize his murderous activities, living a seemingly normal life as a construction worker and devoted father to his daughter. This ability to blend in, to exist as a gray man in society, is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Keyes' story. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that monsters can walk among us, undetected and unsuspected. The ripple effect. The impact of Keyes' crimes extends far beyond his immediate victims. Families across the country have been left to wonder if their missing loved ones fell prey to this methodical killer. Communities that once felt safe now grapple with the knowledge that a predator passed through their midst unnoticed. For law enforcement, the Keyes case represents both a failure and a learning opportunity. The fact that he operated for so long without detection has prompted a reevaluation of how we investigate seemingly unrelated crimes across different jurisdictions. The case has also had a profound effect on the true crime community. Podcasts, documentaries, and books have dissected every aspect of Keyes' life and crimes, trying to understand what made him tick. His story has become a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind a mundane facade. Unanswered questions. Despite the extensive investigations and countless hours of interrogation footage, many questions about Israel Keyes remain unanswered. The true number of his victims may never be known. Keyes himself claimed to have killed less than a dozen people, but his known travel patterns and hints dropped during interrogations suggest the number could be much higher. The locations of many of his kill kits remain a mystery. Keyes admitted to burying caches of weapons and tools across the country, but only a few have been recovered. The thought of these kits lying in wait, potentially to be discovered by unsuspecting individuals, adds another layer of unease to his legacy. Perhaps the most haunting question is whether there are other killers like Keyes out there. His method of random victim selection and cross-country travel made him incredibly difficult to catch. It's a sobering thought that other predators might be employing similar tactics, moving undetected through our communities. The victims remembered. In the wake of such horrific crimes, it's crucial to remember the victims and the lives that were cut short. Samantha Koenig was a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. Bill and Lorraine Currier were a beloved couple, active in their community. Each of Keyes' victims had families, friends, and futures that were brutally stolen from them. It's easy to become fascinated by the twisted mind of a killer like Keyes, but we must never lose sight of the human cost of his actions. Each murder left a void in the world, a ripple effect of grief and loss that continues to this day. Lessons learned. The case of Israel Keyes has taught us several valuable lessons. It has highlighted the importance of interagency cooperation in law enforcement, showing how crucial it is for different jurisdictions to share information and resources. For the public, Keyes' crimes serve as a stark reminder of the importance of personal safety. His random selection of victims underscores the need for awareness of our surroundings, even in seemingly safe environments. The case has also shed light on the limitations of our current methods for tracking and identifying serial killers. Keyes' ability to operate across such vast distances exposed vulnerabilities in how we investigate and connect seemingly unrelated crimes. The role of media. The Israel Keyes case has become a staple of true crime media, featured in numerous podcasts, documentaries, and books. While this coverage has helped keep the case in the public eye and potentially aided in identifying additional victims, it also raises ethical questions about the portrayal of such heinous crimes. There's a fine line between informing the public and sensationalizing tragedy. Responsible true crime content strives to balance the details of the case with respect for the victims and their families. It's crucial to approach these stories with sensitivity, always remembering the real human cost behind the headlines. The ongoing investigation. Even years after Keyes' death, the investigation into his crimes continues. The FBI maintains an active case file, following up on leads and analyzing Keyes' known movements in hopes of identifying more victims. This ongoing effort is a testament to law enforcement's commitment to bringing closure to the families of missing persons. It's also a sobering reminder of the long-lasting impact of Keyes' crimes, the ripples of which continue to be felt across the country. The story of Israel Keyes is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within seemingly ordinary individuals. His methodical approach to murder, spanning vast distances and leaving few clues, makes him one of the most terrifying serial killers in American history. As we reflect on this case, we're left with a mix of fascination and horror. Fascination at the complex psychology of a man who could compartmentalize his life so effectively, and horror at the suffering he inflicted on innocent victims and their families. The legacy of Israel Keyes serves as a wake-up call. It challenges our assumptions about safety and forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the world we live in. But it also highlights the resilience of the human spirit, seen in the tireless efforts of investigators and the strength of the victims' families. As we move forward, may we never forget the lives lost to this methodical killer. May their memories serve as a catalyst for continued vigilance, improved law enforcement techniques, and a commitment to protecting the vulnerable in our society. In the end, The story of Israel Keyes is not just about one man's descent into darkness. It's about the light that shines in the aftermath, the light of justice, remembrance, and the enduring human spirit that refuses to be extinguished even in the face of unspeakable evil. The shadow of Keyes. Years after his death, the shadow of Israel Keyes continues to loom large over America. His crimes have become a cautionary tale, a dark reminder of the potential for evil that can exist in the most unexpected places. But beyond the fear and fascination, the Keyes case has also sparked important conversations about public safety, law enforcement practices, and the nature of evil itself. One of the most significant impacts of the Keyes case has been on the field of criminal profiling. Traditional profiling methods often rely on patterns, geographic zones, victim types, or specific methods of killing. Keyes, with his random selection of victims and vast travel patterns, defied these conventional approaches. This has led to a re-evaluation of how we think about serial killers and has pushed profilers to develop new strategies for identifying and tracking these types of offenders. The digital trail. In an age of increasing digital surveillance, the Keyes case also raises questions about privacy and security. While it was ultimately his use of Samantha Koenig's debit card that led to his capture, Keyes was remarkably adept at avoiding digital detection for years. He rarely used cell phones, preferring to communicate through payphones or prepaid devices. He was careful about his online presence and avoided social media. This digital evasion has prompted discussions about the balance between privacy and security in our modern world. While digital footprints can be crucial in solving crimes, the Keyes case demonstrates that determined individuals can still find ways to operate under the radar. The true crime phenomenon. The Israel Keyes case has become a cornerstone of the true crime genre, featured in countless podcasts, documentaries, and books. This coverage has played a crucial role in keeping the case in the public eye and potentially aiding in the identification of additional victims. However, it also raises ethical questions about the portrayal of such heinous crimes in media. The popularity of the Keyes case in true crime circles reflects a broader societal fascination with the darker aspects of human nature. People are drawn to these stories out of a mix of fear, curiosity, and a desire to understand the incomprehensible. But this interest must be balanced with respect for the victims and their families, and a commitment to responsible storytelling that doesn't glorify the perpetrator. The psychological impact. The randomness of Keyes' victim selection has had a profound psychological impact on communities across America. The idea that anyone could become a target, regardless of location or lifestyle, challenges our basic sense of safety and control. This has led to increased anxiety and hypervigilance in some individuals, a reminder of the far-reaching consequences of Keyes' actions beyond his immediate victims. Mental health professionals have noted an increase in anxiety and paranoia in some individuals following high-profile cases like Keyes. This highlights the need for broader discussions about coping mechanisms and mental health support in the face of such disturbing realities. The role of nature versus nurture. The case of Israel Keyes inevitably leads to questions about the origins of evil. Was Keyes born a killer, or did his experiences shape him into one? His isolated upbringing and exposure to extreme ideologies certainly played a role in his development, but many individuals with similar backgrounds don't become serial killers. This nature versus nurture debate continues to fascinate criminologists and psychologists. While there's no definitive answer, the Keyes case provides valuable insights into the complex interplay of genetic predisposition, environmental factors, and personal choice in the development of a killer. The importance of community vigilance. One positive outcome of the Keyes case has been an increased awareness of the importance of community vigilance. Law enforcement agencies across the country have emphasized the role that alert citizens can play in preventing crime and aiding investigations. This doesn't mean living in constant fear, but rather being aware of one's surroundings, looking out for neighbors, and reporting suspicious activities. The idea is to create communities that are inhospitable to predators like Keys, where unusual behaviors are noticed and addressed before they can escalate into violence. The future of criminal investigation. The Keys case has had a significant impact on the future of criminal investigation. It has highlighted the need for better information sharing between different law enforcement agencies and jurisdictions. The idea that a killer could operate across multiple states without detection has led to improvements in interstate cooperation and the development of more comprehensive national databases for tracking violent crimes. Additionally, the case has spurred advancements in forensic technology. The challenge of connecting crimes committed in different locations with potentially different methods has pushed researchers to develop more sophisticated DNA analysis techniques and other forensic tools. The unsolved mysteries. Despite the extensive investigation, many aspects of the Keys case remain shrouded in mystery. The locations of many of his victims are still unknown, denying closure to countless families. The full extent of his crimes may never be fully understood, leaving a lingering sense of unease. These unsolved aspects of the case continue to haunt investigators and fascinate the public. They serve as a somber reminder of the limitations of our justice system and the devastating impact that one individual's actions can have on so many lives. The lessons of Israel. Keys. As we reflect on the case of Israel Keys, several important lessons emerge. 1. The importance of interagency cooperation in law enforcement cannot be overstated. Keys' ability to operate across state lines exposed weaknesses in how different jurisdictions share information. 2. Public awareness and vigilance play a crucial role in community safety. While we shouldn't live in fear, being aware of our surroundings and reporting suspicious activities can make a difference. 3. The random nature of Keys' victim selection highlights the unpredictability of violent crime. It serves as a reminder to take personal safety seriously, even in seemingly safe environments. 4. The case underscores the need for continued advancements in forensic science and investigative techniques. As criminals evolve their methods, so too must law enforcement. 5. The importance of mental health support for both the families of victims and the broader community affected by such crimes cannot be overlooked. 6. Responsible media coverage of true crime cases is crucial. While public interest can aid investigations, it's important to balance this with respect for the victims and their families. A call for continued vigilance. The story of Israel Keys serves as a stark reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. It challenges our perceptions of safety and forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature. But it also highlights the resilience of the human spirit, seen in the tireless efforts of investigators, the strength of victims' families, and the determination of communities to protect their own. As we move forward, may we carry with us the lessons learned from this dark chapter in American crime history. May we remain vigilant, not out of fear, but out of a commitment to creating safer communities for all. And may we never forget the lives lost to this methodical killer, honoring their memories by working towards a world where such tragedies are less likely to occur. In the end, the story of Israel Keys is not just about one man's crimes. It's about our collective response to evil, our capacity for justice, our commitment to protection, and our enduring hope for a safer world.
If you found this deep dive into the Israel Keys case informative and compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more in-depth explorations of true crime cases. Your support helps us continue to shed light on these important stories and contribute to the ongoing discussions about crime, justice, and public safety. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts or any questions you might have about the case. Together, we can keep these conversations going and work towards a better understanding of the complex issues surrounding